Hi everyone, this is Dr. Lucien. This is Safety 388, Lecture 11. So you notice I'm doing a little bit of a different format here. There's many reasons for it, but mostly I would like to do more demonstrative type lectures instead of the PowerPoints, though I'm going to try to always start it out with a PowerPoint, because for the rest of the class we're really going to focus on the standards and actual applications, though we will frequently be referring back to the materials covered in modules 1 and 2. So this is the beginning of module 3, and I'm going to talk a little bit about personal protective equipment and training. And I'm going to put it within the context of the hazard control hierarchy. As we develop, our risk profile for our company, and we're identifying sources of harm, risk of injury and illness, we got to try to determine how we can mitigate those exposures. And what I mean mitigate, we want to try to get rid of them, but if we can't get rid of them, we want to limit the exposure, limit the access to them. And that can come from many different ways. And we had talked about barrier guarding, within the textbook. That barrier can be on the person, it can be within the environment, it can be on the piece of equipment, and or you eliminate it or you replace it with something else. So that's what we're going to get to in this lecture. So I want you to be familiar with the hazard control hierarchy. It should have come up already in, I believe, week 1. And what this is to demonstrate is that elimination means it's gone. There is no chance of exposure. And when you do that, people can't get hurt by it. So it's obviously the most effective. It's also not always possible, or it is too expensive. And replacing is another thing, but replacement tends to be in regards to like a chemical or possibly equipment. Engineering controls are a very popular one. It's middle of the road as far as effectiveness. It's middle of the road as far as expense. Then there's administrative controls. These unfortunately put a lot of the onus on the workers themselves to adhere to a procedure or a task or doing something in order to protect themselves and others. And therefore, a slip up or a lapse in those requirements, rules, policies, whatever you want to call them, could result in someone getting harmed. And then finally, we have personal protective equipment, or from here on out, I'll call PPE. PPE provides certain level of protection, but in itself can actually create hazards for the worker or make their job more difficult. And they have to know when, how to take care of it, how to recognize when it needs to be replaced. So that's the hierarchy of controls. So make sure you're aware of that. We're going to jump into subpart I, which is the OSHA standards 1910-132, I believe through 140. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the electrical and the fall at this point. I should have I might have to bring up some new stuff too, and we'll talk about respiratory protection and hearing protection later in the course. Though hearing protection, it falls under 1910-95, but we're going to spend time on the OSHA website, and I'm also going to provide you with a plethora of websites and companies you can go to should you have to, if you're put in charge of it. So let's shift back a little bit and talk about training. Training in itself is not a solution per se. It's meant to be complementary or supplementary to everything else you do. Workers need to be trained on how to do their job, and safety, if there's certain performance expectations or they need to be able to react to something in their work environment to prevent themselves or others from getting hurt, they need to be trained. And in addition to that, they need to demonstrate that they can apply that training. Some people ask, what's the difference between training and education? And I think it was the late, great, I don't even know if he's late, but Roger, was it? No, it was someone else. Sorry about that. It said that the difference between training and education is If you've got a teenager, do you want them to have sex training or sex education? Now you kind of know what the difference is. Education is to know about it in order to think your way, to understand, to protect yourself, whereas training is how to do something. Sometimes we're giving workers safety training, sometimes we're giving them safety education, and we need to make sure we can differentiate between the two. On the screen here, I've got a picture. This is actually a company that we're going to look at in a little bit that provides online safety training, and the employer can customize it and then they track it, and that's a good thing because you need to track everything. If it hasn't been done, it doesn't exist. You should be writing training objectives. What I've seen in my career, companies do safety training, but unfortunately what they do is default to the OSHA standards. And so essentially they're training the workers on the OSHA standards. That's lazy. That's actually a bit incompetent of the safety professional, because what they should be doing is assessing what the issues are, train workers on what it is, what it could do to them, and how we want to protect them. That's it. They don't need to know the standard. But unfortunately, that's sort of the default I see quite a bit. So I think this is good. Writing objectives, determine the knowledge gap, makes responsible team, provide structure and assistive coworkers. So I think all these things are really good with making sure that not only is the content of your training precise and applied or pragmatic, but that when it gets out onto the floor, they're able to actually perform it. It's part of the job. Scenario-based safety training is also very good, because then it's not, well, this is what it is, now go figure it out. Extrapolate what I just trained you into your own work. It should be specific to the work they're doing. And that's why I've read research that demonstrates great effectiveness when you have a senior worker, somebody who's experienced, doing the training at the job point, at the point of the work. And then when they demonstrate it, you're assured that, okay, they know what to do. Now you just have to reinforce that they're doing it right. So make sure you are assessing what the needs are, creating objectives, tracking and documenting all the training to make sure that everybody's receiving it and that people are able to apply it. Oh, that's it for that, right? I don't think I did cover that, didn't I? All right, let's get into it. So here's the main OSHA website. If you haven't been here, this is a good start. We go to the A to Z index up at the top. We're going to start out with, let's start with training. Hit T, we'll go to training, and here is OSHA's training page. They've got training requirements and resources if you wanted to pursue the OSHA 10 or 30-hour card. I had said early in this course that I had reviewed a bunch of curricula for the 30-hour, and I built this course in many ways similar to it, but I'm not certified to issue OSHA training cards, so we're not. You can drive to or travel to an OSHA training institute, and through the OSHA Susan Harwood grants, there's a lot of built training programs out there that you can take and customize, and I'll actually use some in this course probably. They're pretty good. So as far as resources for training, there's training requirements by standard. You click on that. I believe it's just a document. Talks about where OSHA requires training, but I wouldn't rely specifically on this. As it pertains to subpart I, there's general requirements for PPE, there's respiratory protection. Do they have 95 on here? Yeah, that's noise. So we'll touch on that too. So this is just one document that you can use as a reference point, but let's take a look at it because it's set up that way. Let's say we need to do training for, I'm going to keep it simple, emergency action plans. Okay, so it's just giving us the standard, and that doesn't help much. It just gives us the language, not exactly what I had wanted to see. There's letters of interpretation. I believe under the safety and health topics, if you go alphabetical, What did I just do? Emergency preparedness and response. Here's good stuff. So here are some things I could use to not only build the program, but also sources for the presentation I may give. There's also built into here, there's going to be different forms of, let's see, there's topics. By topic, you can find information, help and resources, so compliance assistance, small business resources. Under standards, we can find, I was just under the safety and health topics. Training requirements, we just looked at that. There's a lot of stuff here. What I've found personally is that when I need to do training, I take pictures and video when I'm doing my assessment, and I find that I can use those pictures and those videos in my training to make sure that everybody, are we seeing this together? We're trying to protect you from this hazard. Oh, and by the way, this is our company's history with these types of injuries or exposures. So we are going to we're implementing this approach to protect you. And this is what we need you to know about it. This is what we're requiring you to do. Now, show me you can do it. Okay? If we were to look up personal protective equipment, which would be just essentially going to the A to Z index, going to P and personal protective equipment, which is right here. There's good stuff here. Zoom in just a touch. So we've got the standards. It's all under subpart I. That's where we're really spending our time here. Related information. So general related information. Nope, that doesn't help us. Does not help us. That just kind of gives us letters of interpretation and things like that. So those are the standards. For hazards and solutions, eye and face, fall, respiratory protection, we'll cover that later in the semester. There's OSHA publications. It's good to know these, and they're in different languages too. That's good. Small business handbook, OSHA tech manual. If you need to be able to assess the hazard, the OSHA tech manual has procedures for you. If you're doing something with electrical power or respiratory protection, there are e-tools. There's this proper selection and managing. There's training down here, assessing the need. Is that the same as up here? Probably not, no. If we assess the need, there's this handout. It's 49 pages. Oh, that's a zip file. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Let's go back to hazards and solutions here. PPE in agriculture, PPE emergency responders, additional stuff. Selection, that's CDC, that's NIOSH, that's another CDC. Compliance guide through the University of Alabama. Fact sheets, designing an effective program from the Canadian Center for Occupational Health and Safety. And then this is from, looks like it's a chemical hazard. So there is some very good resources here. Fact sheet publication. These are all things that you have access to and will need to access to complete the work for this week. And we'll be going back to this, as we're talking about solutions. Oh, look, see, there's certain ratings that pieces of equipment will have, and you need to know what the exposure is in order to determine that it can meet and exceed what that might be. Of course, if you're going to exceed it, you're going to pay more for it. So now you have to be able to justify the cost. So there's different things you can do here. So let's see, there's payment. That's just basically if an employer requires some form of PPE and that's part of their safety and health plan, they're required to purchase it for the workers. There are instances in which they can provide a base amount, like for footwear. The workers can bring it home and use it there. Well, then they might provide $100 or $150, or they may bring in a foot protection or safety shoe truck, and then the workers pick it out, it's purchased, it's delivered there. And then they usually provide, once a year, they'll update it. If it's a prescription safety glass, they may do the same thing, an allotment, and then the worker can pay a little bit more if they want fancy looking lenses or fancy looking frames, things like that. It just has to meet a basic requirement, and they're paying for the basic requirement, but if the worker wants additional comfort or conditions with it, then they may have to chip in a little bit more. Here's more information on training materials. We don't have to get into construction or worker rights. So that's really everything. So let's quick look at, say, one of the standards. Eye and face protection is one of the most basics. It's not long. It just provides a little bit of information here. This is shield for welding. This is also lenses for welding. But in general, you have to select face eye protection based on what they're being exposed to. Here's, the welding stuff, criteria for protective eye and face. It references an ANSI standard, which means if you are wearing actual certified protective eye and face wear, it should have this stamp on it, the Z87.1. And if you are currently wearing glasses, you can look on the handle of your glasses and see if it does have that stamp. Then it's impact resistant. But depending on who your supplier is, they can provide you with everything. And they may actually perform the assessment for you, which is, I believe, under here. If this is employee owned, if the employee brings it in, it has to be verified by the employer and approved. This is the big one, 1910-132D, hazard assessment and equipment selection. You have to have documentation for what you select and provide. It also requires there to be training. So this is and who pays for it? The employer basically pays for it, unless it's voluntary or if they want something extra, right? They don't have to pay for everyday clothing, but if it is sort of a uniform, if you will, or if it has something built into it, the employer has to pay for it, like clothing that is arc flash rated, heat rated, things like that. So this is a very important standard. A lot of employers default to providing PPE for their safety program, and so if you need to make sure that they are checking all of these boxes. Depending on who you work with, they may do that for you as far as suppliers. So let's get into that, okay? So I support HSI. I provide some of my material for them, and they have a very, very good, very modern training system. And so if you're an employer, usually a larger employer, 'cause there's expense involved here, and you want to remove this burden, this responsibility from the AHS director, whoever it is, you could purchase this and they'll handle it. Grainger, you probably heard of. They have a lot of commercials on TV, radio, and on YouTube. They provide not only safety equipment, but industrial equipment too. So find out who your employer uses as their supplier, industrial supplier. And it's possible if they already have an account with Grainger, then you can go in and pick things out. I'd give them a grade of probably B. They're good, but I think there are some suppliers out there that they have better customer service. Fastenal's one of them. They can provide PPE through a vending system that tracks, and they will stock it for you. I like the numbers. I like to know who's grabbing what, who's using what, things like that. And they have a wide range of solutions. They have a lot of the popular brands that are out there, the brands that are very experimentative with what they provide. So I like Fastenal. I give them an A. Cintas is another one. You probably know them for their uniforms or their first aid, but they have other solutions as well. At the end, I'm going to show you a presentation I had put together for a position I had worked on. Cintas also has some good stuff. Uline, probably more known for their industrial supply, but they do provide some safety-related equipment. I think I'd probably rate them below Grainger. MSC, my experience with them, they try really hard, but they fail a lot. So I give them the lowest grade so far. Actually, the presentation I'm about to show you was to remove them from as a supplier. 3M, you may think that, they just do Post-it notes. No, they do protective equipment too, very good, and they test it, and it's good stuff. You may be able to purchase 3M equipment through a vendor, or I believe you can also work with them and they can help customize things. So 3M, a lot of smart people there, so they're very good. Wesco, which I believe owns Connie Safety, they do a pretty good job. They've got consultants, they've got salespeople, subject matter experts. Good resource depending on where you are. Show a Glove is a popular form. They also provide hearing protection. I've had reps come to campus and actually do demonstrations. They're very knowledgeable, and I do think that they are one of the suppliers that will work with you and help you build whatever protection you need for your workers. Megit is also very popular. Workers tend to really like them. And one thing is, whoever you choose, whoever you're working with, make sure they will provide you with samples so you can take it out on the floor and test them. Have the workers tell you, once you've verified, whether it's cut resistance, whether it's oil resistance, electrical, insulated, whatever it might be, make sure that it meets that requirement first, and then secondarily, the workers will use it. That's probably the most important thing. Edge Eyewear, very good. I used to have a rep come out and do a demonstration and give my students all these really cool glasses, and they also show you how they test it and things like that. So Edge Eyewear is really good. You can find information on the CDC website or the NIOSH website. This here just kind of talks about the different regulations. Here's the ANSI Z87 for protective eyewear. They kind of show you the testing procedures that are required. Gives you a little information and background on eye injuries. So this stuff is all out there. It's fairly easy to find these things, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Ergodyne talking about the cust resistance standards. This is important, you guys, because depending on what you're working with, you can work with a vendor and then you can select the glove, because gloves are an interesting thing. They can make your hands sweaty. They can remove sort of your touch sensation or affect your manual dexterity in doing work. But you need cut resistant, and so you have to work with them. There's different dip coatings, different designs, different materials, different sizes that you can select to try to protect the worker from whether it's abrasions, cuts, or punctures. And these are 3 different things, by the way. 3 different things. The leather gloves that your dad probably uses or you find at Home Depot does not provide much protection at all from cuts or punctures. Just know that. And then there's also testing for hard hats or helmets or bump caps, whatever you want to call them. There are standards for that too. I just wanted to kind of show that there is some additional information out there. And so part of this week is I want you guys to be able to go out and find these things. All right, I'm going to show you really quick here to wrap things up. It's the presentation I had given. Because one is I wanted to get better equipment for the workers, but I had to show that there was value in changing vendors, because companies are kind of afraid of that. It's like, well, if I change, is something going to mess up? But I had shown that the costs were going to improve. I did a lot of data analysis to determine this, but what I wanted to do is try, and they had too many small suppliers. And if we could just get one single one, then it would make things a lot easier. You're probably going to get better service. It's more of what you know. But also, I had found that when I came in, that a lot of their vendors were increasing prices. And I didn't have the justification to double the safety budget to have the same materials, okay? So I came up with some estimates based on usability or how much use has been going on. I reviewed invoices for a year and determined that I could probably save the company just over $12,000, which is a lot better than the $60,000 extra they're going to have to pay given what the usage patterns were and the increase in prices. So through Cintas, we're going to find savings on first aid kits, on coveralls for our maintenance, and for what was Cintas also going to do? I forget what CTC stood for. Oh, I think that was rags. But that was a considerable amount of the savings. I was also asking to change our provider for hearing testing, audiometric testing, and that was going to save about $2,000 per year. And then Fastenal, who they already used, where we were going to save a lot, $4,000. Actually, that's a low number. That's a very conservative number. So I kind of broke down what the service was. So our current provider of our first aid kit, and they do walkthroughs and check our eye wash stations too, and our defibrillators. They did not ever let me know when they stocked it, what was missing. And I think that's important. If there's a particular first aid kit where there is an abundance of, gauze that was removed or burn ointment or something like that, I want to know that, because I want to make sure that the workers are reporting things. They brought it home, whatever. But if they're not reporting things, that's what I was concerned about. And this group would not do that. He was a nice guy, though. As far as the cabinets themselves, once you get past sort of the initial upgrade of the boxes, the cost would go down considerably. So there was a little bit more of an upfront, but it would pay for itself pretty quickly. As far as the coveralls, for the protective coveralls, I should say, for maintenance, I did those, and also wrote in electrical glove servicing, which currently we paid a lot for, and we had to handle a lot of it. But this actually was approved and was put in place before I left. Here's the rags. They currently use like a local group that just got like torn up clothing, and they cut up and sold it for a lot. Quite the business. We could easily make money on that. For doing in-house audiometric testing, that would save a lot of money and give us more control. It'd be less obtrusive to production. And I didn't even work out what that would be. But there's plenty of savings by doing it this way. And then here you can kind of see that they were spending a lot of money, and then I came in, and these were cost increases, not more usage. But just doing some analysis, I found that there were some increases. Some were more than others, and I think we could get a much better product at a better price, so that we're not throwing them away as much by moving to Fastenal. And then that would also streamline everything else we were doing. So that was my promotion. So I did a lot of data analysis to show the value. The thing was, head of engineering put my proposals on hold, even though the plant managers approved it, because we had some major capital expenditures that were coming down, and they just... He said he didn't have time to really analyze it, and so that's fine. That's his deal. So we kept with most of the current vendors and just continued to pay more money than we should have for a lesser product, and that's their choice. But it allowed me to find. I mean, the person who took over for me, they basically were able to take what I provided, and they built on it. So that was the good thing. So that's the lecture on hazard mitigation, PPE and training. The reflections, the quiz, and the questions, the assignment will help kind of get you into the OSHA website and to go on to some of these vendors to get some answers. But just make sure you're always documenting the things you look at, the people you talk to. If you go to a conference, you can get sort of a hands-on demonstration for a lot of this stuff. It's all good. All right, see you in the next one.